The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
One of those guys that has heart and soul, Joel Gilbert, coming up. We'll get his take on this. And he's got a Wendy Davis video. The guy says, "Is that Michelle?" Tell people that Michelle Obama picture isn't real.
I almost fell down when I found out.
You know, I expected it. I didn't expect that. Of course it's not real. Of course it's not real.
Really?
Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please say good morning. And there's people like this man, Joel Gilbert, who I don't know if we could have advanced the story that I believe is so important. I don't believe there's so many times when we've called him, and he has been for us. And I'm thanking Bob Unruh, who will be with us on Monday because we're moving aside. Dr. Jerry Corsi, Robert Spencer. I think about these men and women all the time and think, thank you so much for the work. So this is Filmmaker, investigative reporter, and we've met once. I think he's tremendous. And his name is Joel Gilbert. And I should say, Joel, we did a piece this morning on Wendy Davis in Texas, and we put your clip up, your Wendy Davis video clip. So if we do real quick with her, because I think it ties into Obama, well, I don't think it, I know it does, and not the ability to tell the truth, but how the Dallas newspaper outed her. And we spoke with a woman this morning, Dana Loesch, who said, well, of course they did. They burned her because they knew that the Republican was going to burn her, so they just took her out of the game. Speak to all of this, and good morning, and welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Peter. Great to be here. I can tell you that myself and all those folks you mentioned think about you every day as well, and we're happy to be able to have a voice on your station. The Wendy Davis story is interesting because here's someone who promoted a false background of victimhood or a victim of circumstance and created a false bio, and the liberal media grabbed that false biography and promoted her for the purpose of her taking political power. The investigation that took place through the Project Veritas, James O'Keefe's organization, was going underground into these meetings of the Battleground Texas, actually filming what they were actually up to. And what they're up to is there's simply this extension of Obama's grassroots organizing thugs out of Chicago. They call them now Organizing for Action. They used to be called ACORN. They keep changing their names. Every time they shut down one of these groups, they just slither over and form a different one. And the goal is the same. It's to they start with this racist idea of registering minorities and thinking that if you're a minority, if your chromosomes are a certain way or you have a certain complexion, that you should vote for their candidate. It's an awful racist premise that they base their entire program upon, and then they try to push them and convince them that, well, if you just vote for the Democratic Socialist candidate, we're going to give you all these extra benefits, and we know because of your complexion that you would want these free benefits, and the mean Republicans don't want to give them to you. So the entire effort is based on this racist concept, and they outed them in these videos, and I produced this one for James O'Keefe and the Project Veritas, showing that they were denigrating the Republican candidate, Greg Abbott, because he was in a wheelchair and making all these horrible statements and making fun of him, saying he must have a personality disorder because he's in a wheelchair and so on.
What's the one line that one woman says? And plus, he's in a wheelchair after she rips on the guy. I mean, you guys got to watch this. It's well, like so many things. I think we're doing a second record this morning on people looking at documents and films up on our website, 710knus.com, and Joel's film on Wendy Davis is there. Can she survive this? We spoke about this morning, or can she? Because it really does tie into Barack Obama.
Well, here's the thing: you have to look at the model they've created. Obama was able to survive everything, no matter all the revelations. My revelations that his real father was Frank Marshall Davis and not the Kenyan Obama. Fast and Furious, Benghazi, all the lies, Reverend Wright, his relationship with Reverend Wright. Again and again, all he has to do is come out with one statement, or, why won't you release your birth certificate? You said you grew up in Indonesia. You claimed your father's from a foreign country. Where's the birth certificate? A few years later, he releases a phony document, the press cheer, and that's the end of it.
Absolutely.
So based on that model, she could simply say, like she did yesterday, she responded to my video by saying, anyone who makes fun of someone who's handicapped is abhorrent. And that may be it. They're able typically to come out with one statement. Same thing with Frank Marshall Davis. This is the Soviet agent who raised Obama, who's his real father. Yeah. And they simply had Obama's half-sister, Maya, came out and said, Frank Marshall Davis was brought in to raise Obama because he needed a black mentor.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they
said. Why would a 9-year-old multiracial child coming from Indonesia to a multiracial society need a black communist pornographer to raise him?
And why would you write poems about him?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So if you ask me, can she survive it with one simple statement? I think she could.
Yeah, locally here, and we've had such great scandals. We've had one called Denver Players, Denver Sugar. We've had the life of a governor by the name of Bill Ritter. I go down a list of who these people really are, and of course everybody looks the other way and go Broncos. So, and I'm not saying that about the Broncos. I'm just saying that you can deflect or never deal with and let someone say something and simply walk away. And frankly, it's one of the reasons why they are in demise. Now, let's come to this. We up on our website this morning, 710knus.com. First of all, we have the birth certificate. Only make the case about the race of father being, I think, written by Jimmy down the hall is African. We all could agree. I don't think there's anybody who could disagree that African's not a race. But this was accepted by Mike Litwin, the Post, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News. They all accepted it. But now drops these two next State Department documents, and they're up as well. When people look at these State Department documents, again, all of it's there, 710knus.com. Joel, what should they look for and why?
Well, it takes you got to simply look at the different layers. Most people cannot go beyond the basic first look, unfortunately, and it takes some extra research to really understand what's wrong with these documents. The Obama document, the race of the father, is just one small thing. So many anomalies in his birth certificate. First of all, it was a layered file. Clearly, the numbers are wrong. I obtained birth certificates out of Hawaii that show that the birth certificate number on the top right, he's got 6110641. Numerically, it's out of sequence because I have a number of someone born at the end of August, and their number is 355 numbers before Obama. So the births in Hawaii were chronological. If you were born on January 1st at 12:01 a.m. in 1961, your number would be 61 and then 00001. The second baby would be 00002, and so on. So I have someone born at the end of August 1961 whose number is 355 numerals prior to Obama, who was born 3 weeks earlier. So there's 100 problems with that document, but of course they won't release the original.
And there may be not an original, or the original may say something totally different, which really ties into Loretta Fuddy. Again, Obama's number is 61, and then 10641. Now,
right. I have someone born at the end of August, and his number is 6110, 300 and something.
Yeah, and now he's 641, but he was born, they claim, or said, August 4th, 60. None of it adds up. And for great searches by you and by Jerry and so many other people, can you find in 5 years before or 5 years after an African American, in the terms we use today, a black, or as the terms they said, colored or Negro, can you find another kid born in Hawaii in a 10-year span in or around Barack Obama who a race of a black man is called African?
No, the race designation, they were very strict in Hawaii. There's a code book with 8 different race designations. Mm-hmm. Hawaiian, Samoan, Caucasian, Negro, all the way down. And African was not one of them. Mm-hmm. It's clear that is one of their mistakes. The term African American was not used until the 1980s.
And that's why I've said this probably too many times. I don't even believe this was generated in Hawaii. I thought it was generated in Washington, D.C. by the kid that I've dubbed Jimmy down the hall, who was so politically correct that it's impossible for him to have written the word Negro. He couldn't have done it. and he couldn't have certainly ever said colored, so he puts on his thinking cap, African American, Barack Obama, I'll take half of that. And I think that's really what he did, or whoever that person was.
Well, it's probably the same forger who made the photo with the black hand attached to his mother, Ann Dunham, the same forger with Grandpa's hand floating in the air.
But maybe many forgers. I mean, but one guy isn't good enough, isn't smart enough. And there are people out there, and you have said this before, they could have done this walking away.
Yeah, the overall point, though, is that Obama has a life history deep in the world, the little-known world of American socialism and Marxism, and he was born and raised to a Marxist Soviet agent who raised him, and he created a false narrative. It was about 1990 when he was at Harvard, when he won the election for president of the Harvard Law Review. He started giving interviews, and that's where the false narrative first appears. My father was a goat herder from Kenya. My mother was an anthropologist. I grew up as a street kid. All these lies started in 1990. So you can see he's planning for a political career, and he releases these documents to support the false narrative because it won't stand up on its own.
Did he, when he went to Columbia, or I take it back, when he was in California going to college or in high school, in a very exclusive school, I should say, but when he gets to college, who does he say he is? Does he say he's Kenyan? Does he say he's Indonesian? Does he say he's U.S.? What kind of, I mean, here's a kid that really, by everyone's retorts and reports, was probably a C student who suddenly turns up in an Ivy League school 2 years later. None of it adds up. But who did he say he was, do you think, when he was at Occidental?
Well, he admits to being a drug guy and a heavy drug user, both in high school and in college, cocaine and marijuana. His actual name at both those times was Barry Obama. And he claims, his claims have varied from time to time in terms of his paternity, who raised him, where he was raised, and these things all changed until a consistent false narrative emerged at Harvard, and then he stuck to that narrative ever since for his political career, and these phony documents are released whenever people start questioning and pushing him and saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense. He gives you a phony photo at the airport with his mother in 1971 to show that he was there, but really he's with his real father, Davis. When he can't produce a birth certificate to show who his real father was, he comes up with this phony birth certificate, and he's been able to skate through and keep the false narrative going with these very poor forgery documents.
I was telling the story earlier about you and the press club. Joel, tell the press club story.
Well, the press club story is I was invited to speak at the National Press Club last year when my film came out, Dreams for My Real Father, and I simply had some bad experiences with the press already at that point because some of them were not covering the film, others were ignoring it, and I went there and I simply accused the national press, Washington Post was there, Dana Milbank, all these guys. I accused them of not adhering to the journalist creed. The journalist creed is a document that all journalists study and sign off on, that they have to be fair and balanced and not be biased and report the news without any editorial comment so people can decide for themselves. So when I gave this speech, I also announced we were sending out a few million of the DVDs to swing states, and got a good standing ovation, and that got the left-wing press pretty upset, and that's when they started attacking me and paying attention. Unfortunately, the so-called conservative press was still afraid to cover it because they were afraid to cover anything personal about Obama's background. I think the conservative press should have told the truth. I think Romney should have told the truth, that if he had said everything about Obama's personal past is a lie, everything he told you he would do when he was running for president, we're going to have the most transparent administration ever, we're going to cut the deficit in half, everything he told you was a lie, everything he's doing in office is not true. Had he just told the truth that this is a person with a phony background and a phony rhetoric to accomplish an agenda that is irreconcilable with American values, Americans would have had a clear choice between American values and Marxist values.
We will talk on Monday, depending on where this story goes. As always, Joel, we could have never done the hard work without you. So
Thanks for having me today.
You're the man. Thank you. Joel Gilbert, filmmaker.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.